I like to subscribe. Do I? You don't know what time it is? It's Netflix time. This is called Deranged. A substitute teacher with an obsessive student begins an illicit affair that endangers everyone involved and blurs the line between predator and prey. So it's an African drama that came out in 2020. It's about an hour and a half long. Spoiler alert, let's get it. So it starts off with this chick named Caitlin. She's just rude to this other chick, like, yo, she gotta be walking with us. Here comes Benny. He's a new substitute teacher for the school. Walking into the school, she ends up bumping into him by accident. But she don't even apologize or nothing. It's just like, really? So right at the back, she comes off snobby and pompous. Anyway, after all that, he gets directed to his classroom by one of the assistants. Just so happens he has to be teaching in the same class that Caitlin's in. This chick mad that she failed the test, but she failed because she basically plagiarized the whole thing and copied the shit from the internet. Now all of a sudden, Caitlin's just nice to Benny. It's just like, where'd it come from? She was a snob at first, now all of a sudden she acts like she got some respect. It's like, fuck. Well, later on, she goes to an exercise class with a couple of her friends. And some of the guys come through like, hey, yo, what's good? You try to skip class? So she like, bet, where we going? So they're like, all right, we about to roll out. Caitlin, you going? Caitlin's like, nah, I'm good. So wait a minute, all they did was roll out just so they could sit on cars? So they're not doing any drugs, they're not smashing, they're not going to a party. They basically just came out there just to sit outside with them. They might as well just finish up the exercise class for all that shit. So after a long, hard day's work, he comes home to his wife, Camilla, who's pregnant with their unborn son. So for 6 years, they've been married and been trying to have a kid, and finally they're about to have one. Happy family, happy life. But she don't want to seem lazy, so she's still doing retail at her job. But it's not really that, it's more so that they need the money, because she's having doubts about their financial situation when the baby comes. Next day in philosophy, Caitlin has this intellectual conversation with Benny about God, faith, and fellowship. So just off that conversation alone, she's like, yeah, you're becoming my favorite teacher. So afterwards, she goes home to her mom. She goes in her room and starts looking at pictures of him online. And then she just develops this infatuation with him. Now, normally you have something in common to develop this shit with. Like, say if she had an obsession with cats, right? And she found out online that this guy owned a bunch of cats. That would be one thing, right? There's nothing in show is leading here to all of a sudden she's about to be obsessed with her teacher. First, she bumped into him in the hall without apologizing, just because they had one discussion in class about God and faith. Now all of a sudden she's obsessed with this nigga. We don't have enough of her character to feel like there's an obsession taking place. Even to other crazy people, this makes legitimately no fucking sense. Next day they have conversation, he's giving her compliments and stuff like that because he thinks she's the smartest person in the class. All that's doing is boosting her damn head up. Then he goes back to check on his wife in the hospital. She getting the sonogram. And that's when we find out it's a boy. Next day in school, Benny gives out a surprise test for everybody. While they're taking the test, she starts daydreaming and shit. She starts daydreaming, climbing on top of the desk, imagining him eating fucking grapes. Snap back into reality, bitch! So afterwards, she's the first one to finish up her test and dips out. Then we got these niggas, one of them trying to shoot their shot. The dude named Prince comes up to Caitlin. His game is weak as fuck. But she ain't paying that nigga no attention anyway. But if you know what I know, count your blessings. You don't want that anyway. Then she goes over to Benny again. She was wondering if he had any lunch and she was gonna make it for him. But now his wife is already doing that for him. Then they play this killer music in the background like she about to do something. Later on, we had this random ass house party. The Caitlin moms come asking for a daughter. She's like, hey, what's going on with your grades? You slipping? And she's like, I know, I probably need to stay after school or get a tutor or something. Her mom's like, that's a good idea. But the thing is, Caitlin's been failing her tests on purpose. So her mom would okay her a tutor. So obviously, she's trying to get Benny back to the house. Meanwhile, Benny's already trying to shop for baby toys. Like, you trying to get him a piano, nigga? He's not even a newborn yet. So his wife is worried about money again, the financial stuff, and he's like, well, I'm gonna pick up some extra classes to be a tutor, you know what I'm saying, get some extra money in. The problem is, it's Caitlin that needs the tutoring. So she's like, no. You thought to yourself, she said no, well, that's that. But he knows his wife is going to keep worrying about the money, so therefore, he took the tutoring classes anyway. He goes to Caitlin's house, and they start the tutoring. She dressing all sexy, flexy for that shit. It's like, why you got to do all that? You trying to learn. But we know what she trying to do. So she said the reason she ain't been concentrating lately is because she been having boy issues. He gives her some advice, and she starts giving her compliments out the blue, telling her everything, how you're special you are, all this other stuff. Of course, her hearing that, she's really going to be obsessing over this dude now. And he gets back home to his wife, everything's all good and gravy. But you know, it's only a matter of time since her shit jumps off. Well, anyway, he had to go use the bathroom. Caitlin tells us down in the basement. When he goes to this other room, he figures out it's not the bathroom, and the door locks behind him. Then he looks around the room and sees all these pictures of him with his wife cut out of him. Then Caitlin comes in and she's like, yeah, and lets it all out. She's like, I love you, I'm obsessed with you, all this other stuff. So he's like, fuck this shit, he gets his books, he's getting the hell out of there. So when he gets home, not to worry his wife when she asks him what took so long, he says, no, everything's all good and gravy. I just had to do some extra tutoring. Then they go to sleep. At this point, Caitlin's waiting on him the next day. Apparently, he hasn't been there for a couple days at this point, so Caitlin's talking to her mom like, hey, what's the deal? Where's Benny? But when she calls Mr. Benny, he gives her some excuse like his wife is sick. And Caitlin can't accept that shit. She's like, you paid him money to tutor me. We ain't done our sessions. But obviously, she don't care about the money. She just want to see him. So then she heads on to a school, finds out they got another substitute teacher named Michael or something like that. She ain't even sticking around for class. She's like, man, I'm getting the fuck out of here. While he massaging his wife's feet, she gets a phone call from Caitlin, who doesn't say nothing. She's just pissed off. Then she calls back asking for Benny. Benny's like, fuck that, hang that shit up. Then Caitlyn starts getting flashbacks to when her dad left her. See, she's already having abandonment issues. Ever since her dad left, her mom has been sleeping with random ass men, and she's never felt like she's had love. So next day when Benny goes to work, Caitlyn pops up at the door to speak to his wife. Later on he comes back, he's looking for his wife, he's like, what the fuck is going on? Okay, so Benny's wife has asthma, right? So when he checks his phone, he gets a message from Caitlyn and shows a picture of an inhaler. I'm like, oh shit. Indicating he knows that she's been in her house. While his wife is talking, he's like, yeah, I'll be right back. He leaves out the house. Goes over to Caitlyn and starts choking the shit out of her. Then she tells him a story about how she never felt loved, and she gives her this backstory about everything that's going on with her. Then out the blue, he hugs her and then kisses her. Oh shit. He tries to stop himself and says, no, this is wrong. And then she's like, no, it's not. Get the fuck over here. And then he ends up giving her the business. Meanwhile, Camilla blowing up his phone. He knew this girl was crazy. It's like, why did he have to take it this far? Goes back to the house. He's regretting his damn decision. But you already did it. It happened. It's too late now. So now next night, she preparing him dinner and shit. He's like, look, last night wasn't supposed to happen. It was done deal. Don't call me no more. Don't fuck with me. None of that shit. And he goes back to chilling with his wife. And obviously, she doesn't take this news well. Then we get these flashbacks to her dad. Apparently, Benny said a lot of the same stuff her dad said to her when he left. Next day, she stalks Benny's house again. As soon as he leaves, she comes to the door. Caitlyn told her that Benny told her to stay outside of her house real quick to wait for something. So she tries to call her husband to confirm it. Luckily, he wasn't able to answer to confirm that shit because she was about to stab her ass. She tells her to come in, gets her some juice, convinces Camilla to drink some juice. Then she asks if she was cooking. She smells something burning. When she goes to check on it, Caitlyn puts some fucking ketamine in her drink. I'm like, oh shit. She drunk and her stomach feeling sick. She tried to grab for an inhaler, but Caitlyn picked it up and tossed that shit and basically just left her there to die. I'm like, oh shit. Then she changed her clothes. And when Benny comes home, Caitlyn is still in his house. So he's like, look here, bitch, get the fuck out of my house. Where's my wife at? She says she's sleeping. Then as she's leaving, she says, our love story's not ended, it's just beginning. So then he started contemplating what she just said. He's like, wait a minute. He happened to look on the couch and see the inhaler under the couch. Then he calls his wife and he hears the phone ringing inside the house. He checks under the sink and sees her in the cupboards under the sink. It's like, what the fuck? He gets the ambulance to come. He's about to follow the ambulance because he can't ride in the same car with them. Somehow he had time to scream no and look into the sky like a fucking cliche. Doctor tells him the situation once he gets to the hospital. Unfortunately, the baby died and the wife is in critical condition. Fucked up scenario. Then Caitlyn calls him while he's in the hospital. Basically, they had a long conversation. He was like, man, you killed my child. You threatened my wife. Basically, you're dead. So Caitlyn is just casually walking like she's going to the mall or some shit. Who's the person in the hoodie behind her? I'm assuming it's Benny. She's all looking around herself paranoid. But she came to the mall to buy a $100 purse. If you're that paranoid, why the fuck would you come out just to get a $100 purse? You already have a backpack. Afterwards, she get back in the car. Her goofy ass about to call the police, thinking that she's being followed even though you did just try to kill his fucking wife. She thought somebody was coming for her in a black hoodie, but it turned out to be somebody meeting up with somebody else. Then she said, never mind, and hung up the call. But she couldn't hang up the call because somebody was choking her with a plastic bag behind her, choked her ass and got her the done deal, did his shit. Why the fuck was I stuttering that bad? God damn. Yeah, she forgot to hang up the phone. Then we see Benny taking a shower. All of a sudden, police come to his door, say he's under arrest. I'm like, what the fuck? Turns out they found his ID card next to Caitlyn when they found her dead. Wow, he ended up getting arrested. But here's the crazy shit right here. As it turns out, Benny wasn't the one that killed Caitlyn. It was actually Camilla. What in all the fuck? Alright, so flashback, back at the conversation he was having with Caitlyn when he was talking about killing her and all this other stuff. In the conversation, he said he should have never slept with her and all this other mess. While he was talking, he didn't realize Camilla heard all that shit. So once he left, she got up, called up somebody. She called some guy named Maxwell talking about she needs some clothes. And she was the one actually following Caitlyn. And she's the one that actually strangled her in the car. And she left Benny's ID on the seat. But how did she even get it? So when he kissed her and she thought she was still asleep, she slid his ID out of his pocket without him noticing. Well, she got semi-justice. Unfortunately, her baby did die, but she was able to kill Caitlyn and had Benny sent off to jail. And obviously the only reason she did that because Benny cheated. I still don't understand why Caitlyn had an obsession with Benny anyway. Yeah, I get the whole daddy issue thing, but still. Deranged on Netflix. Check it out. Like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. Look easy, all the easy, best. Big. You got this slogan.